Good evening, folks. Tonight, Monday, April 24th, I'd like to call the 6:30 PM public hearing order, this council order 2023-035, utility grant of location, National Grid, 389 Granite Ave. At this point, I'd like to ask anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition to come to the podium, state your name and address. If you do not wish to, but would like to give your support or opposition recorded, please sign in on the sheet on the table at the back of the chamber. That being said, is there anybody in favor or against on this project? Going once, going twice, all right. Seeing not further public comment, I will close this public hearing at 6:31. We'll be back at 6:35 for the Finance Committee. Thank you.
I'm going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee of the Quincy City Council to order. And first, I'm going to read in the open meeting law. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public hearing or transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Okay, at this point, I'll ask the clerk of committees to call the roll.
Councilor Andronico. Present. Councilor Kane.
Present.
Councilor Devine.
Present.
Councilor DeBona.
Present.
Councilor Harris. Councilor Liang. Councilor Mahoney. Present. Councilor McCarthy. Chairman Phelan.
Present.
9 members, you have a quorum.
Okay. The purpose of the meeting is to establish a municipal broadband enterprise fund. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the champion of this from the beginning, Councilor Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate your recognizing me on this very important and crucial matter that we've been working on for a number of years now here in the City Council. I'm very grateful to the support of my colleagues, the support of the mayor, and for my partner in crime on this, Mr. Walker, who we've been walking through this process to establish a municipal broadband system for the city and its residents for the past 5 years now. This is no small infrastructure project. At one point in time, I think, in the year 2020, 2021, when we had last presented the master plan for this project, we were looking at upwards of $75 million to wire the entire city for a fiber optic network that would endeavor to provide a higher quality of internet service to residents and at the same time lowering the costs over time. We view this as an essential infrastructure project. This is a project that, when we do complete it, it will be national recognition. This is innovation at its finest here for a municipality, and it's taking local control over essential infrastructure. We live in a day where everyone is on their phones and on the internet constantly, whether for work or for school, and this is really an opportunity to level the playing field for all types of socioeconomic classes, and truly playing with the term equity, especially in a digital context, allowing for people to participate in the digital economy. So today, this is just a procedural, sort of administrative measure to form what will govern the municipal broadband system for the city, similar to the water and sewer department, where we have enterprise funds that govern the revenues and the costs that are associated with managing those departments. So right now, we're currently going through feasibility and engineering studies, which will hopefully be ready over the next 2 months. So we'll look forward to coming back to the council with a financial request for 1 to 2 pilot areas in the city. So I know that right now I still get the most comments from folks in the city about this project. So this is kind of the status update. So we're currently in feasibility and engineering. We've got 2 identified pilot areas, one in Quincy Point, another in, I think, the Marymount area, I think extending out to Howes Neck. But we chose these places based on, again, socioeconomic diversity. So we want all different types of people in the city to have access to this emerging technology. So I also want to thank my colleagues, Councilor Andronico and Councilor McCarthy, for their support in helping us to advance in their neighborhoods as well. What else here? So the idea is that we launch this over the next couple months. I don't think I have much more to say, but thank you to my colleagues. Hope they'll support it tonight. And we look forward to making this very important step in establishing the governance of this project and hopefully getting a much larger scale project underway over the next year. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other councilors? Counselor Yang.
Thanks. I just wanted to motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Counselor Andronico. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Counselor Mahoney.
Can I just ask a quick question? So in the resolve for, I think this is the municipal, this is the resolve that came in on May 2nd. I just want some clarification. Therefore, the establishment of the municipal lighting plant shall be submitted for ratification to the voters of the city of Quincy on an annual special election. Is that something that this will be on the ballot? I just want some clarification on that.
Through,
Me.
yeah, Mr. Walker.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. It's a good question, Counselor. We do not, at this point, believe we need to go through with the full process with establishing a municipal light plant. When we started this endeavor several years ago, that was the guidance we had received from the state and from some of our legal advisors on it, that any situation like this would require a municipal light plant. Subsequently, within the last year, because Quincy is now not the only one looking at this, the Department of Revenue, through the Division of Local Services, has issued advisory opinion that this could be set up as a simple enterprise fund, which, from a process standpoint, is just a lot easier, right? The municipal light plant, which, if we had to go through that process, we would certainly feel very confident that we would win the support of the voters based on the public feedback that we've received. But in terms of streamlining the process a little bit, DOR has ruled that an enterprise fund akin to the cities, as we have in Quincy, the water enterprise fund, the sewer enterprise fund, essentially treating it like any other utility. The municipal light plant legislation goes back more than a century, and it really has to do with power and power plants. And DOR did, I think, at some point look at the anachronisms in some of that legislation and say, look, broadband isn't the same as a municipal light department, isn't the same as a power company. It's basically just fiber cable. So it should be treated like these other utilities. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, so this is just phase one, so we're going to start the,
Yeah, the creation of the enterprise fund, it is a formality in the process. It just creates it. We have no revenue at this point. We have no budget at this point. We have no meat on that bone, but it just sets the table for when we get through this engineering and design phase, get through a community process with the affected pilot neighborhoods, start really telling the story of what we want to do within those neighborhoods and getting the buy-in from those neighborhoods, and then come back to this body for the appropriation request, that the system is there to support it when we do that.
okay, and just to play this out just a little bit further for anybody that's home, because I do just want to play this. So when we would be charging maybe people for the fees, so this is where the fees would go into, or if we were to be getting maybe potentially from Norfolk County, if we had got COVID money, let's say, to put towards, you do laugh at me, but I do think this would be a good use of COVID money. Could be.
No.
Okay, well, I'm just, another instance would be if there's money that's coming in that it would be able to be put into that account as well.
Understood? Yes, that's true.
Okay, that's my clarification, so
Okay.
thanks.
Counselor?
Yeah, it was just quick. Of course, any money that doesn't come from direct taxpayers or residents of the city would be advantageous to use for a project like this. Especially with the federal money, there was guidance set forth by the Department of Treasury that precluded money being used for broadband infrastructure projects. So I just want to clarify that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Suggesting that we want to make sure, just point of clarification for myself too. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that this is an account that was going to be set up just like the water and sewer, that we'll be watching, that potentially that there'll be monies that will be coming in, but then there's also be funding that will be going into it, and that's something we'll have to watch.
Sure, just to follow up on that, through you, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to amplify that point, that ultimately, this is a service people will be providing for. We don't think that this is going to be on the backs. If certain residents in certain neighborhoods decide they want to stick with the incumbent subscriber for their internet, they'll be able to do that, and they won't pay into this. And the enterprise fund will be strictly those fees paid for the people that want to subscribe to the city internet.
Counselor Kane?
Just on that, and this isn't a mandatory program, it's opt-in, right? So folks will subscribe to participate in this program as if they would be affixing a water pipe to their home and paying for that over a certain period of time. And then in cases where there are economic disadvantages, there is money available in many different pockets in the state and federally that can help residents to participate in this program.
Counselor Demain?
I just want to say it's a great idea. I have a lot of constituents in Ward 4 that have expressed highly for this, so they'll be looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Counselor Andronico?
Thank you. I did just want to say, thank you to Councilor Kane, and I appreciate the cooperation of the administration to prioritize Quincy Point as one of the 2 pilot neighborhoods moving forward for this type of project. Quincy Point in particular has a lot of economic and cultural diversity, and I think that's really important to emphasize as we move forward. And this pilot program, Quincy Point, and of course, Marymount and Council McCarthy's ward, will have the opportunity to see what works with this program, what we can improve upon, and expand it for the whole city. But what we saw during the pandemic was that internet itself isn't a luxury, it's a public utility. And I think keeping that in mind moving forward, when we had kids learning online exclusively, you have to start treating internet differently, and taking this step in particular, I think is the recognition of that. And I look forward to getting that pilot program up and running in the months ahead. So thank you again.
Okay, seeing no others, we have a motion and a second, and I ask to read the roll.
Counselor Andronico? Yes. Counselor Kane?
Yes.
Counselor Devine?
Yes.
Counselor DeBona?
Yes.
Counselor Harris? Yes. Counselor Liang? Yes. Counselor Mahoney? Yes. Counselor McCarthy? Yes. Chairman Phelan?
Yes.
9 members.
9 members. 9 members, it's unanimous. At this time, we'll close out the finance, with no other business before the Finance Committee. We'll close out the Finance Committee to start the regular council meeting. Motion to adjourn?
I would like to call this meeting to order, the Quincy City Council, Monday, April 24th, 2023. It is now 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Present.
Counselor Kane.
Yes, present.
Counselor Devine.
Present.
Counselor Harris.
Present.
Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor Phelan.
Present.
President DeBona.
Present.
9 members.
9 members, we have a quorum. Please stand if you can. And if we could get a moment of silence, please use it as you wish. Please turn to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, first item on the agenda. please.
Number 1, 2023-031, a resolve conditions at the CVS Pharmacy. Yes.
Yes.
Before I call on Councilor Harris, I just want to elaborate, everyone. This was resolved back on March 20th of 2023, which is about a month ago, where a unanimous vote from all 9 members of the City Council to have folks from CVS Corporation appear in front of the Quincy City Council to address some of these things that Councilor Harris will address moving forward. So, and Councilor Harris.
Thank
have
you.
the floor.
Thank you, President DeBona. With us this evening, we have some members of the CVS group, and I want to first thank my colleagues for the 9-0 vote. There are issues that are going on at the CVS, and I'm sure Council McCarthy will talk about the CVS in his ward. But before I go any further, I by no means am trying to shut down CVS. I am trying to assist in opening up, which it looks like we got it done, communications with CVS and the neighbors who I represent. So I don't want you folks to take anything personal. It's personal to some of my constituents, and it's personal to me. I just want to, I'm going to show some things that have taken place, which are good, but we're not even close. I don't feel that way. So I'm just going to show a few things, and you folks, thank you for sending the pictures that what you folks have been going through. There's been a lot of social media about what's going on there, especially in my local area. And I have to tell you, my community needs the CVS at 321 Quincy Shore Drive. We have, just right across the street, we have two assisted living housing, Quincy Housing, and we have the moorings, which depend on you folks. And this is very important. So thank you for coming. I'm going to be able to ask you to, when you do go up to the podium, when I ask to speak, or you want to speak, because I'm going to ask you to address some of the things I'm going to show again. And if we could, at that point, just give your name and what your role is with the CVS group. There's two store managers here. We have the district manager here, and we have the attorney who represents CVS here. So thank you, folks, for coming out this evening. So as you can see, I'm going to flip through these. These were the before, and there's some very good, thanks to everybody getting the word out. These are the befores. That's, again, that's a concern. That this is a concern, the fencing, the driveway. So social media has been talking about mice being in the store, and I saw it firsthand Friday. This is the basement, am I correct? If whoever wants to answer about your pictures, these are your pictures that you've provided me. This is downstairs. You're storing in plastic Tupperware, am I right, food or edibles that are going to go upstairs, correct?
If I may, my name is Attorney Peter Lyons. I represent CVS and have for 30 years. With me, to my right, is Tom Driscoll, who's the district manager of CVS and oversees each and every facility in the city of Quincy. We're here to address Councilor Harris's concerns and the council president's concerns, and from your vote, all of the council's concerns. Unfortunately, during the COVID period, we, like everyone else, had problems with employees and employment. We had district managers and we had store managers that did the best they could under trying circumstances. As I understand that you people in the city of Quincy also experienced. But we're here tonight to, number one, address each and every concern that Councilor McCarthy or Councilor Harris or any of you have with regard to these two locations, and to let you know that we will provide contact information for both the store managers. The store managers are sitting right to my rear here, and of each location, and we'll give you their numbers, cell numbers, and so that you'll be able to contact them with any concerns that may arise in the future. We have been in contact originally with Councilor Harris. I've reached out to Representative Bruce Ayers. I've also notified you, Council President DeBona, through emails. We haven't had any discussions about it, but we would certainly appreciate any input from you or your constituents, and we're here to address those.
Sure, thank you. And the before and after pictures, but my question though was, am I correct that you're storing things downstairs in these Tupperware that then get brought upstairs to be sold?
That's
Okay,
correct.
and as I mentioned, and I spoke to you earlier, you know, the complaints, and I saw it firsthand last Friday, during the candy that's down on the shelves, the mice are running through them. But I want to say that there was the before pictures, except for the fencing. You go back, there's a big difference, folks. You see, it isn't like you haven't reacted, and I appreciate it. That was before, and then we go to the after picture where it's been taken care of. And when I looked at it, I wish the tops would be closed, because last Monday I have a picture, it's not on here, where there was items open. So it's not being secured that way where there's closing. It's just it's things, I get pictures from the neighbors, I get the emails, but as you can see, they fix things up, and they really need locks on them. They need that type of security, and it should be, because you met with a neighbor that stopped somebody from throwing mattresses over that. And, you know, we're just talking about one problem after another. The key is to get together, follow the rules of the health department rules that are vital. And I'd like to read, and you folks and then you can come back up, because I'm going to read an email. I need to thank, again, always Representative Ayers and Senator Keenan sent a letter, and I was also part of it, and I think I had that at the last meeting, where, sent it off to various agencies. And one was, I have a email from Ryan McGowan Conran, Acting Legislative Director of Office of Commissioner, Department of Public Health, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, he has visited the CVS on the 19th of April, and this is the email that he sent. I wish I had copies for everyone, but I'm sorry, I didn't have access today. I started a new job a few weeks ago. It's tough getting old. Hello all, an update from our team. Now, this is from the Acting Legislative Director of the Office Commissioner of Department of Public Health of the Commonwealth, not our health department. So yesterday, Pharmacy Inspector John Murray went back to check on the matter as follow-up. Below is his recap. The perimeter of the store is in decent shape. A little more wind-blown trash was observed than was the first visit. Next, the back area with the dumpsters is clean and secured, and the bait boxes are still in place, which is a great sign. The front of the store's shelving units still have the kick plates removed and traps under them. No rodents were observed in any of the traps. The plastic bins in the snack aisle are now gone, and there is nothing being stored on the shelves that they occupied. Next, in the pharmacy, the areas observed to have signs of mice during our prior site visits were clean. There were no medications observed being stored on the floor, and the rug was clean. Next, I did observe a couple of other areas that were not checked that did have signs of mice. I pointed them out to the MOR, DANG, and recommended that the bottom shelves be cleared and cleaned when the cleaning service returns. And it was the bottom shelves where I observed. He goes on to say, I emailed CVS, DL, Jennifer Ally, as well about the additional signs of mice that needed to be remediated. I spoke to front store supervisor Kim, and she said that Orkin was still coming in 3 to 4 times a week and had been there earlier today. Thing is, but there were no additional documentations of any visits after our site visit. And it ends, thanks Ryan McGowan, Acting Legislative Director, Office of the Commissioner. So obviously, the eyes of Texas are on you, and I'm sure that you're going to be visited again. Moving forward, there has to be a better plan. And obviously, there was discussion about the fence, and we've had the discussion about the fencing around the building. The security lighting that wasn't working, you just told me that it is working now, because there was a overdose incident in the back. So we don't need that. We really need this vital part of our community, my community, to be up and running, because you're very much part of our community. So if you could, tell us what's been put in place.
The DM's probably in a better position than I to answer that, so I'll let Tom
Thank you.
address those concerns.
Okay. So my name's Tom Driscoll. I'm a district leader for CVS. I actually work in partnership with Jennifer Alley. So she has the pharmacy side of the business. I have the front store, which includes the building itself. So she would have joined us today, but she's really just a pharmacy. So I've been with CVS for 32 years. I've run 28 stores, 2 of them here in Quincy. I recently was promoted to a district leader in January. So I took over after the previous district leaders that were here before. And there was, some neglect during COVID, I think, right? So I'm here out of good faith to represent CVS as the district leader. I did bring the 2 store managers of both locations with me so that we can make sure that you all have our phone numbers, including mine. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to me directly. I did meet with CVS's attorney as well, just to make sure that we cover all of our bases too. We are a big corporation, and we want to be a good partner in the cities and towns that we operate in. I am new to this role, so the comment about the tubs on the floor in the snack aisle, that was my way of trying to be able to. Can you hear me now? That was my way of trying to be able to, to deal with that issue. So we have, there's so many different issues that you brought up, so I want to make sure I get to them all. So if perhaps I forgot one, I'm sure you'll just readdress it with me. So I'm passionate about my job and with the leaders within my building. And so I'm here in front of you today to be able to answer some of those questions, not only for you all, but for the community, right? I mean, we're there in a community in which we serve. You know, I shop at CVS too. You know, I live in Easton, and there's several there as well that I shop in. So I get it. I'm in the stores all the time, you know, buying stuff too. When the concerns came to my attention, we addressed them immediately. And I think that that's where we're at right now, is having that open line of communication and that dialogue so that when something happens, that I can react to it. And hopefully I've proven at this point, at least, that it's important to me, just as much as it's important to you, and I'm invested here. So we did get the fences involved. We have a property department that takes care of everything specific to your concerns. It's one person for the Northeast, and he gets everyone lined up, and I have direct communication with him when each thing comes up. I'll address 321. That store on the beach. So that beach store has had some problems in the past prior to me being the district leader there. We do have a plan there. We had the regional visitor out, regional manager from Orkin out, as well as the district manager from Orkin, and the in-store person who's been doing that store, plus Dorchester's for me as well.
So, I don't mean to interrupt. So the email I read, though, said that the documentation showed
Yep.
that it, you know, that there wasn't, and that was concerning.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And it's concerning to me too.
Okay.
So Taylor, who is the local Orkin rep, her printer wasn't working. But I have the documentation that I can email to you
Sure.
once we get back from the region manager from Orkin. So I'll be more than happy to forward that through.
I think it would be better to forward it to the state health
Oh,
department.
yeah, sure. Yeah, listen, I get it. You know, I'm transparent. If you don't already know, I'm very transparent. So, you know, we're not trying to hide anything
Oh,
here.
no.
You know, the neighbor came over to me when we were in the parking lot, and I don't want to say his name. A neighbor came over to me in the parking lot, and it was great. You know, we got dialogue, communication of what was affecting him. He made a reference to me that the lights were off at night, and he told me about that truck that was trying to dump mattresses and other stuff, and said, hey, it'd be great if you could turn on the lights. I spoke to the store manager, said, put in a ticket. That night, the lights are on. So some of that's just the dialogue. So I'm here to represent not only CVS, but the community, right? Like, I get it. You know, we want to be there. We want to, if we could be 100% all the time, I would love that, right? Like, because that's important to me, you know, so.
Right. I met with the same neighbor
Yeah,
on the holiday in October. And so I'm glad the communications are open, because it took this long, and it took us throwing a chair through literally this council throwing a chair through the window to get your attention. So I appreciate what you're doing and your passion. And believe me, I know my son actually worked at that 321 many, many years ago. It's always, you have great staff there, but they shouldn't have to also work under those conditions that they're still existing today. And to think that it's not, it is. Because it was, again, like I said, Friday, and there also has been some social media that has popped still about it, so.
yeah, I was aware of the social media in March, right? So that's when I started to become aware of it. And then, you know, so I started in January in this role. Shelley, the manager of that store, also started in January in that role, and we've been working together side by side, trying to figure out that issue. And although on paper it may look like there was no visits, there were many visits, 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week, with mass trappings and other things. So the moment it comes to my attention, I am reactive to it, and I will continue to be reactive to it, not because there's a threat of whether CVS will be shut down or not, because, I mean, it's a community, right? Like, we need to make sure that what we're doing, it's our community, it's where we live, it's our, you know, so it's important to me. It was important to me to be here today in person and not just send an attorney, because you need a face to the name of the people that are here in this community, that you know that you have our commitment for that.
And I do appreciate that. Again, but we need results too, and the results aren't there yet. And there's also the fencing that surrounds the building. And there was discussion with the neighbor and not with me, that it, I worked 35 years in an organization that leased buildings throughout the country. And if there was damage done that was caused, for instance, the fences, that was caused by any way, whether it was a truck or a snowplow, those fences were damaged in 2015. That was a long time ago, since, and that was before I was even on this council. Remember, there was no place to put the snow, and it wasn't, and CVS is responsible for removal of that snow. Now, I don't want to start getting into who's going to replace the fences and fix the fences and secure it, but it needs to be replaced. And I think I would obviously like a dialogue in the future with me or the president of the council on where we're going to go with this. Is the landlord responsible or is CVS responsible? If it's the landlord, well, obviously, if I was the landlord, I would argue the point that you're responsible for the snow removal. We know that the snow was piled up well above the fence line, and the weight on that damaged them. So in the job that I had, the organization I worked for was responsible for any damages that we were being part of. So I can't get into that debate with you, and I certainly need something done about it, because it's not safe, and it's
our firm commitment that will be resolved. Right now, we're in a position where we have to deal with the property owner, all right? We have to get his assent to put a new fence up, or how are we going to share the cost, or do we bear the whole cost? We're in those discussions as we speak.
very good.
And that will be, taken into consideration as we move forward with all of the improvements. The other major problem I see at that location is the exit and egress,
Yes.
which has become a major public safety problem.
Yes.
And Patrick Martin,
Yep.
who allowed me to use his name, he said, "You use my name at the hearing." He's
Yeah.
the abutter.
Yeah.
And he said, "But please, you can cite me." But I'm telling you, the island that's at the beginning of that cut-through or driveway.
Needs to be
as you
taken
may
out.
wanna call it.
Yeah.
It's very low,
Yeah.
and when it snows, people drive over it, they tear their mufflers off, like bottom of their vehicles and things of that
Well,
nature.
we also have folks cutting through from Quincy Shore Drive.
Correct.
And cutting through to access the street and go in the wrong direction, which there are signages, but that needs to be a little more,
Right.
we really need to.
What we're gonna work with the landlord on, and what I'd like to see is that island come out of there.
Yes.
Because that's a wide opening.
Yeah.
As far as the curb cut goes, off of the side street, I forget the name of it, that goes on to
Right.
Shore Drive. But certainly it could
Hummock,
be,
hummocks.
yeah,
Hummock.
it could be better utilized.
Yeah.
And we would stop the cut-throughs. We have signs, as you see in some of the
Yes.
photos that we gave you. We have do not enter signs, but it gets confusing because of the drive-through.
Yeah.
There's a stop sign at
See
the
that
end of the
stop sign right
driveway.
there? That's confusing. We
correct.
gotta take that down.
So people go,
Yeah.
well, why is that stop sign there?
So,
You can't
because
go there."
I can drive that way, right,
We're
exactly.
going to try to rectify that also.
I appreciate that, and I do appreciate, now, I'll open it up if any of, I know Council McCarthy will probably ask about what's going on in his ward, his CVS, but I'm excited about this. Please, I'm going to be calling you about the fence. I mean, that needs to be taken care of, and obviously, really got to, go all hands on deck with the, it is pretty bad with the
We
with
hear
the
you,
mice.
And
Okay.
we want to work with you. And
Yeah.
CVS is a community, we take our corporate responsibilities seriously, and we want to be part of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Peter, Tom. Good to see you. And thank you for bringing the managers. Mine's a little different down on Southern Artery. A few asks, and I know we spoke briefly before it came up. My biggest thing down there is that dumpster in the back. And Tom and I had a brief conversation about relocating it. It sits right in the back, right where that park is that we're trying to establish. We've been working at that for the last couple of years, trying to clean up the lobster traps, clean up the whole area. It's really come out really well, thanks to a lot of people, and the Department of Natural Resources has been down there. Last year, we had Cleaner Greener folks down there when we do the cleanup, and they'll probably be back down there on May 6th. But the dumpster, if it gets missed for some reason, if it's really full, 25% of it is all back in the park and all down in the water. If we could move it, and I made a suggestion, but you folks can take a good hard look at it. I think if we went around the corner towards Meineke, there's some room there. There's a little hill area that possibly could make a niche and put it in there. And I know that the Capital Waste, or whoever we have picking it up, they have the netting, so when they put those dumpsters up, it catches the excess that's blowing all over the place. And down there, it gets windy, as I know the managers would know that. But that's my biggest thing down there. The other thing is, as Councilor Harris indicated about rodents, if we can really just step it up a little bit in regards to that, being on the water, and also with us doing that major cleanup and disturbing that area down there, we could have issues. So I haven't had any complaints. The traffic down there on Southern Artery is busy, but no complaints at all. There's plenty of room in that parking lot. The only other ask, and I said this could be an ask that's down the road, but I'd really like to see CVS and the city get together and form a partnership to work at really restoring the Southern Tide Mill. You folks are going to be neighbors and have been neighbors for a long time. And I know that our vision is to get the Southern Tide Mill completely restored, that area as a passive park, and just a wonderful area down there. It's very big. I think it's very deceiving. A lot of people don't go in the back, but it's a pretty good piece of land on the town river, behind there on Fore River. And, we had been looking down the road to also try to restore the docks back there, and again, down the road. But I think that's another discussion, but I'd love to get together with the right people and connect them with the city on being a partner to help us with the Southern Tide Mill, with the restoration, with that whole area. Because, again, we're going to be neighbors, I think, for quite some time. So that's the third ask. The last one is, Tom, what you indicated is just phone numbers, communication, calls. It doesn't have to be to me. I mean, I make my calls to inspectional services. They had been down a few times to try to rectify some of these complaints, mainly the dumpster and the trash issue that was down there. But if we can get something rolling in regards to that dumpster right off the bat, and I know you did some work, I think yesterday or today down there, fixing a fence also that runs along the boatyard and Meineke and also around the dumpster. But those are the things, and I think you folks would agree with me on that dumpster. It fills that back area up really bad. Not a couple of pieces of paper, but it really fills it up. Yeah. So, but thank you for coming in. I think we can work this, and I'd love to work that Southern Tide Mill end of things, because I think CVS would be a great partner in regards to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor.
So ironically enough, I managed that CVS 15 years ago when there were woods behind it. And so when that dumpster pad was put there, when the store opened, it wasn't overlooking like the ocean, the riverway like you can see now. So I was a little confused. Do you want us to move the long dumpster or the dumpster?
The small one in the back?
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
the small one in the back, I think, is the issue.
Okay.
That affects that park.
And that's when.
And I'm trying to push it over on the side of the pharmacy drive-up window.
Yeah.
Corner.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot to get it out of the way. But again, you folks can take a good hard look at it in regards to getting it out of the way so it's not out there sending everything into the Fall River.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, so I'll certainly request that part. I don't disagree. It is kind of also in the middle of the drive around part two. It would require a little bit of time because we
Sure.
have to lay a pad and then we have to disassemble the other one that's there in order to try to create that to move it. It is also going to be in what everyone sees when they're in the drive-through is going to see the dumpster area, but we can certainly deal with that part of it. We did install a new fence back there as well, so it wasn't a repaired fence, it was a brand-new fence. We put it along the line all the way up to the dumpster. That location, we've been having trouble, and we really appreciate the partnership with the town, because we have transient people that go back there and take sleeping things and other things and create space for themselves. During COVID, we've had 2 cleanups of that area to try to disassemble it and get rid of it. I would have gotten rid of it sooner if I could have done it myself, but I wasn't touching like the needles and stuff that were on the ground. So we got a special crew to come in and take care of that. At the same time, they did rip apart the fence of the cardboard dumpster and then created a little home for themselves in the back there. So we've cleaned all that up, redid those fences, and we have locks for them as well. I think we're just waiting on one side fence just to completely block off the compactor one at that location. So I'll recommend moving the dumpster and trying to create one of those nets above like you talked about. So at least if any breeze gets in there, it might take
Yeah.
it away.
I think the fence, Tom, you're talking about that you installed, is that chain link, the black chain link?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Go right ahead, Council Harris.
I'm sorry. Just to follow up then, so you folks installed a fence on a piece of property that you leased?
So we have different leases, but yes.
Okay, so it's,
One was leased at a different time than the other,
but different rules, okay? If you could update me
I hear what you're saying.
with that, because the fencing is, okay, so I'm hearing a fence goes up,
Right. Now, that's a different.
goes for him, but not for me, all right? So,
You want a short chain link fence?
no, you don't want to do that.
No, just
Yeah.
checking.
That's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you, gentlemen, and
I'll
ladies.
stay in touch with your
for-
office,
You
Counselor.
guys should get in the fence business.
Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Yang, you have the floor.
I don't have any questions, just more statements. I want to thank my colleagues for spearheading this and championing on behalf of the residents in our communities. I think that to the managers, thank you for all that you do, especially, again, during COVID. Things are really limited and you still have to go to work every day, right? And do everything that you can. And so, in listening to all this and hearing what's going on and the asks that are coming and the responses, this is more to the attorney, if you could relay this message back to whoever runs this very, very, very profitable organization, this company, right? There's a lot of businesses in Quincy who do a lot more with a lot less. And so I expect nothing more than immediate results to what my colleagues are asking here. The fact that they've had to go through this process to get you here, again, thank you to the managers for you being, this isn't on you, right? You can only do so much with what you've got. And so again, my statement really is relay this back to them, get them the resources they need to fix these problems, because we have amazing businesses here in the city, like I said, who've done a lot more with a lot less, but they can't deliver on what they're up here talking about if they don't have what they need. So if you could just relay that back to them. CVS is not a small business. I can imagine they can put up a fence. I can imagine it's maybe a couple $1,000s. They could probably swing it. So I again, commend you guys for bringing this in, giving this opportunity to talk about this. I commend you three for being here tonight, taking the time to do this. But again, you can only do so much. So with open lines of communication, yeah, it'd be great to talk to you all. Please let us know too if you're not getting the resources you need. I'm not talking about finger pointing. I'm talking about just being really honest and upfront about the fact that you can't deliver on things unless you have those resources. So please let us know how we can be helpful with that as well. We'll continue to support my colleagues in this work. Again, I commend Councilor Harris for always stepping up and doing everything that he can to represent his constituents, who include my parents who live right up the street. So thank you again for that. But yeah, we need to get you guys what you need to deliver on this. So I'm sure CBS can afford it. Let us know how we can help with that effort too. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Mahoney. You have the floor.
I just want to ask a quick question. So Tom, you said that you're the new district manager, correct? And is that your title, district manager?
District leader. Yeah.
District leader, okay. And the person that was there before, I mean, one of the things I think that could solve this problem fairly quickly going forward is that inspectional services, you should have a direct line into inspectional services, and inspectional services should know to you guys, because we have a lot of small businesses, and when the small businesses have problems, they get fined and things get done. And I think part of the problem that was happening was that there was nobody for anybody to talk to because we didn't know that there was a change in district managers. So it's really important. I think another thing you can bring back to corporate CVS is when you have a change in district managers, reach out to your local communities and get in touch with those inspectional services to introduce yourself as the new manager, because you're working in those communities and you want to make sure your business is being represented really well. Any complaints that are happening, you want to make sure that you're taking care of and ratifying, correct? I think that might be probably the first step, I would say, to be able to fix those things, along with all of the other things that have been identified. But that's something that we absolutely have to have, is that direct line of communication with the corporations that are working with us. And it works both ways, so that when maybe Councilor McCarthy wants to share an opportunity for maybe partnering in the community, we can reach out to you too. So thank you very much.
I appreciate the feedback. As a new district leader for CVS, there are so many things that I don't know. So this is educational for me too. And I appreciate the call out for the managers that work for me, because I know them both. They are hard-working store managers that do a great job, and it doesn't lie on them, it lies on me and above. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Councilor Andronico, I recognize you.
Thank you. Just a quick note in general. I know we talked about forming a further partnership with the Friends of the Southern Tide Mill. Just as a note, there is a Friends of the Southern Tide Mill annual meeting on May 25th at 7 o'clock. That's at the Point Congregational Church. So there might be an opportunity for CVS to join that meeting and talk about moving forward. Again, that was May 25th at 7 at the Quincy Point Congregational Church. That's all. Thank you.
Folks, I have a couple of comments and a few minor questions. Back in 2018, there was National Grid had a lockout, and it lasted 7 months. And in this council chambers, we subpoenaed / presented the president, Marcy Reed, to come in here to speak to all of us. She did not show up, but within a week later, that lockout was ended. It was about 150 people in this room, and I give you guys a lot of credit for coming in here and communicating with the city council and ironing out the issues that are going on at the CVS Corporation, obviously. One of the biggest things I think is I use the Care Pass. I buy that for $5 a month, and you guys give me back 10, and I use it every month, and I get my medications there, and you guys run a good corporation. It's just the side where Councilor Harris and Councilor McCarthy have spoken about is the outside, the exterior. Do you have a property management company, or do you do the work yourself, or do you sub this out to another? How does that work?
So each lease is independent. So the Quincy Shore Drive one is different than the one on Southern Artery. And so the landlords have their own cleaning people. It's in the lease for them to clean. The same thing with the fence. CVS's position about this fence, I get the fence is huge. I saw the fence myself. It's old. It's time to be replaced. And so I'm not opposed to that. It's just I can't touch it till the landlord tells me I can touch it, even if I think CVS, Councilor Liang said, of course we want to be good neighbors, right? So if I could touch it, I would touch it. So we're working on that to try to get the landlord to work with us.
So you're basically tied until the landlord commits to doing some of these appropriations? Yes. Is there any type of spot check, like, okay, we're going to do this seasonally? Like, for instance, right after the winter, it didn't snow a great deal this year, but usually in April or the end of March is a good time. There's usually a lot more papers on the ground all over the place, it's trash from the winter, a lot of snow. You usually do a spring cleanup. You walk the grounds and you go through, just a punch line of all the items that need to be done. Do you do that? Do you have any type of formal, checklists that you guys have that you can put in there?
We have what's called a fix line for us, and
Yes.
so every time something happens, it's an electronic copy of what's going on within the store. So if we didn't see a cleanup, we can just put in a ticket. It doesn't rely on the manager to actually do the work or do it or run out there and pick up all the stuff. It kind of gives us that, but it also lets us know when those cleanups are happening. So if it wasn't happening, then that's our fallback, that we could say, hey, listen, there's no cleanup here at this location. In both of these locations, I've been to them several times since I took over in January, and I wasn't aware of the fence issue when I first walked it, to be totally honest. I walked over there and we talked about the fence, and I walked that whole thing, and I'm like, it's kind of like it's together. There's some new pieces that are put there, but it needs to be replaced, and that's really the argument. And I hear it loud and clear, and I am on the same side, right? So if I could get out there and hammer it down, I would do it. So that is the goal.
As is facilities for CVS, by the way. There's a fellow named Mancini that we've been dealing with. He's all for replacing the fence, which is Councilor Harris's major concern. We're willing to do that. We want to make sure it's in accordance with the lease that we have on that property, and that the landlord approves of everything we're going to do.
Sure. Do you guys think that you can give us basically a spot check every 3 months, almost like a seasonal, to say, okay, this is where we're at with a fence, or this is where we're at with cleaning the grounds, or this is where we're at with the dumpster situation? Can you send me a report, basically every 3 months, and Councilor Harris as well? And
Yeah, I think we can do whatever you
McCarthy?
need, and I think that I don't want to wait 3 months. If there's an issue, I want you to call me right away.
Right
So
away,
you'll have
yeah.
my
Right.
number, and if there's something that's kind of coming up. I think the other part too is I think about like where my parents are deceased, but I know where they lived, and I know the pride in the community in which they're from, right? And so it's important to me that somebody would address my mother's concerns or where she's at too, and so you have my commitment for that. So
Okay.
you'll all have my number, so if your parents aren't happy there too, give me a call, and keep that line of communication open, because I'm more than happy to address those. And, in reference to those longer projects that might
Sure.
take a little bit, I don't have a problem creating
Peter, do you
that.
think you could do that? You get I know you gave a phone call to me and an email as well. Can you do that to the three of us, the council president, Councilor Harris, and Councilor McCarthy, and just have something that we can go through the punch list and say, okay, these things were taken care of and we can move on, or these are new agenda items that have to be put on? Can we do that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Counselor.
So we have agreement.
I'd like to thank Jennifer Manning for helping us this morning, for bringing in the pictures and allowing us to tell you at least the minor steps we're making, and hopefully the bigger steps as we move forward. And I appreciate the work that she did on that. And she's an ace to this council.
So I just want to thank you guys for coming in. I really do, all four of you for coming and talking in front of us and ironing out these issues that Councilor Harris has brought about, but we need some action. So at this point, it's all in the next phase of the getting the talk into action. So thank you so much, Councilor Harris. Councilor Devine, you have the floor. Go right ahead.
I keep hearing you guys talk about your landlord, your property owner. Clearly, I don't know if they're working fast enough for you, but I'm sure Councilor Harris would have no problem dragging them in here. So maybe you could let them know that we're not happy with the way they responded to you. You're here today, and we appreciate that. And if you'd like to, I'm sure Councilor Harris would put pressure on the property owner himself if he's not going to take care of you guys, okay?
You're here.
Thank you,
So
Counselor.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All set, other councilors? Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda, please.
Number 2, presentation and analyst of non-union employee compensation.
Oh. Looks like we have Eric Mason here as well as Tom. Thank you. The presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Why I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Set?
You're all set. You have the floor. Go right ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, council members, mayor, and the city. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present the results of the 2022 compensation study for the city. My name is Mike Verdorn. I'm a managing principal with Gallagher. Been with Gallagher for about 16 years, doing public sector compensation studies like this across the country. So we do cities, counties, states, towns, et cetera, and doing this type of work to help set up salary structures in different ways based on what the cities need. So we're going to walk through everything here, kind of the quick background, what the compensation study was, the different methodologies, the steps that we went through, and then the ultimate recommendations as well with the salary structure that we recommended to develop, and then worked with the city to implement that salary structure, these different methods. And the city has taken that and kind of made that their own as well, which is what we expect, and we really appreciate that with a lot of our clients. So we contracted with the city to do a compensation study that included conducting a custom survey to collect local data from other cities around the state that are similar size, similarly situated. Also collect data from published survey sources, and I'll walk through what those are, and develop a salary structure recommendations that exerts external competitiveness and then different methodologies to slot those jobs in, as well as future salary structure adjustments. How to maintain something like this so you can have minor adjustments on an annual basis and then some more significant steps in every few years as well, so we don't get into a position where you're 10, 15, 20% behind the market. So from this, we conducted a custom survey. We worked with the city and identified some local comparable Massachusetts municipalities that would have similarly sized organizations, similar structure in a way, similar types and levels of work. So we collected that data. We sent out a survey as an Excel spreadsheet, get that data back from them. We want them to make sure they're making good job content matches. It's not just job title to title. Another city may have an accountant similar to the city of Quincy. We want to make sure that we have the right level of job that's matched, not just the title that exists. So when we got that data back, we'd have follow-up conversations with them, an email that would make sure that we have the right information, and then also we reviewed that information for outliers, make sure that they didn't report actual salaries that are below the minimum or above the maximum or anything like that. That's our job, is to make sure that data is clean itself. The other part of it is we collected data from published survey sources. These are surveys that are conducted on an annual basis. These are large national-wide surveys. I did notice one typo that both Eric and I missed before. It says CompData Midwest Survey. That should say Northeast. Within it, CompData has a national base of surveys that we access. We purchased that one. Mercer, Willis Towers Watson, those are conducted annually, have a lot of different benchmark jobs. We're able to get both public sector data cuts, but also private sector. These are mainly meant to represent those cross-industry positions that do exist in public sector and in private sector. IT, HR, finance, those jobs exist in every industry. We want to make sure we're balancing that. So these are nationally recognized. These are sources that we regularly use, and it is a best practice and our recommendation to make sure you're looking at that difference between public sector and private sector data within there. From that information, we're collecting data at different percentiles. So we're collecting the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile of actual pay to make sure that we can compare the city at different points in the market. That 25th percentile is a point where you're above 25% of the organizations and below 75%. 50 is your spot in the middle. It's different than the average. It's that middle point in a data spectrum. So it's not being skewed. If you have really high numbers and a bunch up here or a bunch of low numbers, it's not being skewed that way. The 75th percentile represents that market where you're above 75% of the overall market as well. Overall, over 80% of organizations do want to try to fix their salary structure on the 50th percentile, building that midpoint at the 50th percentile so you can pay below, at, and above market for various positions. We tried to collect data on all 86 of the jobs that were included in the scope of the study. We got enough data for 61 of those 86 job jobs that are in there. We need to have at least 5 data points for every single benchmark job. That is the compliance with the Department of Justice, Sherman Antitrust regulations, to make sure that we can summarize that on the custom survey side. So from the published survey side, we were able to get data for a lot more of those positions as well. So we got good, solid market data based on our experience to make sure there's a good, solid basis for doing the analysis and also building a pay structure. The other pieces that we're doing it with 2 different types of adjustments. One is this geographic cost of labor differential. So in some instances, the municipality that we're collecting the data from is not located directly here, has a different cost of labor. The survey sources that we're using might have a different data cut. It might be the state of Massachusetts. It might be the Northeast region as well. We need to make sure it's adjusted to the cost of labor that you all experience here. That is a best practice that's recommended to do, especially in instances where the cost of labor might be adjusted up to make sure that you're being competitive and you're not setting yourself up behind the market. So we use an organization called Economic Research Institute. That is the gold standard for those different costs of labor ones. If you're a multinational or you're located across the country and you have different salary structures, you might have, hey, in here we have our base pay structure. We need to adjust it by down 5% for this location, up 5% for this other location. That is the gold standard for it. For example, what we saw is the state of Massachusetts data cut for some of those survey sources. If we got that cut, we're going to adjust that data up by 7% to reflect the local market in which the city of Quincy competes, to make sure that you're setting the salary structure up that's competitive for the local area. So that was done to all the survey source data that was come in at different levels. Okay, that's an example of one. When we're comparing the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile of the market, we're looking at that relationship. Anything plus or minus 5% is considered highly competitive. You know, you have a little margin of error within those comparisons. You might have adjusted pay, the market might have adjusted pay, you might be just a little bit above or a little bit behind. Anything up to 10% is competitive. You get over 10% off the market, it's possible misalignment or misalignment with the market. However, there's always potential reasons for that. It could be the individual performance, the individual longevity that exists. If you have one person in that job, you might be way above the market, but that person's been in the job for 25 years. That's expected. Or they've been in the job for 2 years, they're below the market. So all of that data has individual stories, and that's what we worked with the city to make sure that we're implementing and looking at the salary structure right. Overall, across those 61 benchmark jobs, we did find that the city is considered misaligned with the market. Across all of those, it was on average 13% behind the market. That is an aggregate difference. So it's a sum of all the market data that we have for those jobs and a sum of all of the data of all the salaries in those same positions at the city. And then what is that percent difference? So it's not an average of percents within there. On an aggregate level, 13% behind. Okay, some jobs might be closer to the market, some might be a little bit more, but overall, the salaries that existed were 13% behind the market. So from that, it is considered misaligned. However, we're doing that comparison at that 50th percentile, that middle point as well, okay? So from that, to reach kind of fully competent status within a job, typically somewhere between 5 to 10 years, depending on the level of job that exists. How long you should be in there until you reach that 50th percentile, that middle point, typically within a market. Overall, there's that 13% below, and such factors like performance, longevity, tenure, when you've had to recruit for various positions as well, depending on the labor market that exists. You might have to pay higher for a job at a certain given point in time. You may be paying for the experience that somebody has outside of the city of Quincy as well. So there's all those individual factors that go into it, but our charge really is to take this market data and try to develop a salary structure and then slot those jobs into that pay structure so that you have a competitive pay ranges that align with those jobs and align with the market. So from that, what we do, and this is a common best practice, is the approach typically, is use that market data and set up a pay structure. So we're going to take the lowest market data point that we collected, which was just over $58,000 on an annual basis. We're going to put that as this grade 5 within there. And we're going to put some grades down below it, and we're going to put grades above it up to grade 23, so that we're encompassing all of the market data ranges that we collected. So the salary structure, the salary ranges can be competitive at the various different levels of position, levels of market that are necessary, okay? So between those grades are a 7% midpoint to midpoint differential.
That was the ideal differential that we identified based upon the levels of work that exist at the city to make sure we can slot those jobs in there appropriately and find the right best fitting that would reflect internal but also external, which is the primary comparison figure that we're looking at. So as an example, we had a job, the sample job, that had a market data point of 63,679. When we look at the pay structure, that 63 aligned most closely with the pay range midpoint of 62,670. We're going to slot that job into that pay range. That is the most closest aligned. That would be the best reflective of the market for that position. So we did that with all of the other 60 positions that existed as well into this structure. Then we worked with the city to say, where do those other 17 jobs go? We need to say this job right here is incredibly similar to this job, which we placed in pay grade 11. We think we should put that also into pay grade 11, thinking about the job content, level of city operations, scope, decision-making, those different aspects that would say, let's make sure that we slot those jobs in there right. That is a very common practice because it is highly unlikely that you're going to find quality, valid, and defensible market data on all of your positions. And so we need to have that assessment. Getting on 61 out of the 80 is great. We have a really good set of data that we have to always slot those other remaining jobs. So overall, this is the pay structure that was developed. Then we worked with the city and they took that and said, how do we implement this? We provided some initial recommendations, original findings to say, this is how much it would cost. These are the number of people that are below the minimum within there. Here's where they could be within the pay range. Then they have to balance that with what is fiscally responsible, what's affordable within that, and how do you phase it in. And I know one of the things is to look at a phased-in approach. That is a very typical response. It's like, hey, we can't do everything in year one. We're going to do part of this in year one, part of this in year two, knowing that we're moving ahead. And so that's the short-term recommendations. Cities to review those range placements recommended by Gallagher, review the implementation methods, and then tweak that and make sure that that is their own, and make sure that that's something that is affordable and sustainable. On the long-term basis, next year, the year after that, and the year after that, you need to make some minor tweaks to the pay range structure. You need to move that structure up by a certain percentage. Now, over the last 2 years, that's been a lot higher than what it typically had been. Last year ended up being salary structure adjustments about 4.5% to 5%. That's about almost double of what it was the year before, typically. Between about 2012 to about 2020, it was always like 3% for actual pay is kind of the typical progression, and 2% for adjusting the pay structure every year. Now, over the last 2 years, that's really kind of almost like doubled, about 6-7% for actual pay and about 4-5% for salary structure growth because of inflation, because of the market competitiveness that exists as well. So on an annual basis, we can work with the city and we can say, hey, here's the salary trend that we're seeing in the market. Here's what we recommend to adjust that by. Every 3 to 5 years, the city should go back out and do this study again to collect that data from local basis, collect it from the published surveys, and recalibrate that overall pay structure, make sure it's still appropriate. Doing that, those two different things on an ongoing basis will ensure that you're not going to have that significant, huge adjustment in the future with some small tweaks here and there. So.
Mike?
Yes.
You're Mike V, right?
Yep.
We were pretty good. You're good on time. Very good job.
Okay.
We did really good in the last group, but we're going to go to the Rule 10, which is a debate limitation to 15 minutes per counselor, and then in the second round, you'd have 5 minutes. So I'd like to open this up to the counselors. Feel free if you have any questions, comments. I'd like to recognize Councilor Liang.
Thank you. Hey, Mike, I'm sorry if you're going to repeat something. I was trying to go through this very nice packet that Eric put together while you were doing the presentation. So just baseline, though, so I can have a little bit more information as I review this packet. I know that this is just a presentation tonight, and so I want to make sure I ask the questions that are on the top of my head now to start looking through this, and I know your contact information is here, should I have any follow-ups. But when did you start the survey? When was the survey started?
The original market data was started to be collected in the late spring, summer of 2022, and then it was updated most recently, I think Eric said it like back in this fall. Yeah, October, November, to re-update some of the data that things had changed.
Okay, I just wanted to know, how much time had passed from when you started it to presenting this in front of us right now.
Yep. And one of the things too is that one of the things that aspects of the Sherman antitrust is that when you're doing a study like this is you have to have the data be at minimum of 3 months old.
Okay.
And so we did comply with that a little bit longer than what we would ideally like, but still getting the updated data in November, we're at a good spot. Market data itself is always old, but we have taken that data itself and always aged it forward as well, using salary trends to age it forward, and we can age it forward to another date whenever the city wants it to be. Hey, the structure is effective July 1, 23. Can you implement in January? We can age that data forward to make sure it's not immediately dated.
Okay, that makes sense. So have you done an assessment like this for any other municipalities before?
Yes, probably a couple hundred. Yeah. So, yeah, from small organizations that have like 10 individuals, a city of North Dakota, to city, county of Denver, city of Minneapolis, city of Austin, Texas. We've worked with Boston Public Schools
Great.
as well. And then
That's great. Yeah, no, I mean, this is very thorough. You clearly have a wealth of experience on here.
Yeah.
So typically when you go forward and the recommendations say that, again, every year to do a sort of review to keep up with the market, right? And so this is a very general question, but again, just trying to think out loud with you here. Generally, when you do that year review, are there very large adjustments that have to be made year over year that you see?
typically not.
Okay.
Typically not. Hopefully, in an ideal world, it's something that salary structure adjustment. I mean, the last 2 years has been a little bit of an anomaly where, inflation has caused that salary structure adjustments to go up from, 4, 5, 6, 7%. And part of what we have learned throughout all of this as well is that we'll have a lot of municipalities that, like, our neighbors just gave a 9% increase. Like, we had this one in Idaho. They said, our neighbors just gave a 9% increase to these people. It's like, okay, that's great. That doesn't mean that you have to give 9%. I don't know the history of what they have done the last 3, 4, 5 years with their pay structure or their actual pay. They may be trying to make up from what their lack of movement has been as well.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why we try to look at that broader market of both public sector and private sector to make sure we're setting up something that's going to balance.
Okay,
in that
good.
way.
I mean, again, it seems like it's very thorough. I just wanted to sort of establish a baseline from when I'm going through this. It seems like, honestly, that this is a sort of check-in for something that we haven't looked at holistically for quite some time, I imagine. I'm assuming we're also not the only municipality that has been in this position before, and so I'm grateful to always have a chance to sort of look and say, okay, how are we doing things? How can we improve it? And this seems like a good start to that. I'm interested to see what recommendations come out of this specifically to us on the council, and I'm sure we'll see you back here quite a number of times as we go through this, but I'm grateful for just at least a starting point, and I'm sure we'll be in touch with more questions.
Appreciate it.
But thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Andronico.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the thorough information. I just had a question. I noticed it took into account, geographic differential for Massachusetts, in particular this, like the local labor market, 7% difference. Did the study at any point take into account, at what salary you might be able to live within the city of Quincy at all, as like a certain pay grade or at a midpoint? Basically, at what salary would you be able to afford to actually live here is something that I'm curious about.
No, we did not look at the what's the livability, oh my gosh, what's the right word? Like the cost of living in this area and compared it to the affordability or anything like that, like the housing or anything like that. No, we're saying, here's the market for this job, here's where that needs to go. Now, whether or not you're slotting jobs into different pay grades based upon some of those contingencies, that's part of kind of the broader, more detailed implementation plan.
Understand just the difference between, this is what the local labor market is, but I was just curious throughout the research if you might have an understanding of that affordability index, I guess the best way to phrase it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because we do want to be concerned about the cost of living, and those are two different factors: cost of living, cost of labor. So they're going to be, the cost of living one is going to be incredibly volatile. It's going to go up and down. The cost of labor is going to have some trajectory to it that's going to be more consistent in those changes year over year. So you're not having to be like, oh, this year we adjusted by 30% up because of cost of living, and all of a sudden the next year we're not doing 30%, we're doing 15 because of whatever the market happens.
Right. Nope, understood. Those are my only questions. Thank you very much.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Mahoney.
Thank you for the presentation. So I guess one of my first questions is, what are the comparison for cities like around here? What are the cities that you compared us to, or towns that you were comparing for your research?
Yeah, there was a list of 18, then they can provide that.
What's that?
They can provide the list.
So off the top of your head, can you give me maybe the top?
Yeah. Yeah, do you remember some of them? I don't remember the
That's
names
okay.
right now.
That's
I'm
all right.
sorry.
I don't mean to. I just thought maybe, I'm not looking for all 18.
New
Eric.
Council. Some of them were Randolph, Hanover, Weymouth, Braintree.
He's going to give me all 13.
Yeah, it's called Queen Continuum. It's like all the cities that touch us, and
Okay.
then first level would be all that touch us, and then all those that touch those.
Okay.
So very local communities. Our friends from the Midwest, so you might not know some of those.
No, it's okay. It's when I'm asking that question, I'm asking because obviously if you could share that with the rest of the council, that would be a great piece of input. And then also, when you're looking at those other communities, obviously there's salary and there's bases of those salaries, but then there's also benefits that go along with those salaries. And each one of those communities have a different base for what the base salary is, what the pension might be, what the benefits, the healthcare benefits might be. Are you looking at those things too?
Pension is standardized in the state for the contribution.
No, I know
levels.
that. Well, I guess I'm thinking more of the healthcare for that situation.
I don't believe that was included in there, but the cost of labor.
Yeah, no, the benefits were not included in the scope. We want to make sure that the base pay structure is as competitive as possible. Then the city will have to make some decisions like, how do we value benefits and base pay based on our cost constraints? And the benefits too typically are going to have vary based upon the employee's value that they see in those benefits at any given point in their career path as well.
Well,
So
actually, I agree with that, but Quincy does have a very good benefits package that we have here in the city of Quincy, and most municipalities have different ranges of that, and we like to pride ourselves of what we have for our benefits. But also on the other side of things, when you're also looking at the private sector, those kinds of benefits don't exist in the private sector. So those are things that I would think we would have to actually take into consideration when looking at salaries, because it eats into your salary if you're in the private sector when you're paying for that health insurance, where if you're working for municipality and you're working for a city like Quincy, the benefits are pretty good here in the city of Quincy for that case. Now, some people might disagree with me because the benefits have changed over time here in the city of Quincy for the longevity of people who've worked here, but in the private sector, it's much different. So I guess I would actually think that would be part of the compensation package is the full look. I know in the private sector, when we're looking at things, we're looking at that full private, we're looking at that full compensation of what we're providing to the people who we're going after and targeting and how we're trying to bring them in. It's the compensation, but it's also the benefits that we're providing for them too.
Correct, yes. And then it is part of the total compensation. The scope of the study here was to focus on the base
Just the
pay.
base
And it
pay.
is a typical practice to try to separate those two to make sure you're comparing the apples and
Apples, yep,
apples as much as you possibly can. It's like,
Yeah, I
let's
guess-
look at base pay.
Yeah.
Here's the- yeah.
So, but you only did the base pay, you weren't doing the compensation
Correct.
part. So I guess that's the fuller picture that I was hoping that we would have as well, but this is a great start, so I really appreciate it.
Any other councilors? Councilor Devine, and then we'll go back to you, Neil.
I think you guys did a great job with the presentation, and I really appreciate the 113 pages that we'll be digesting, and I'm sure we'll have questions for you afterwards, but great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We'll go back to Councilor Liang.
So on the booklet that you gave us, towards the end, there's the position titles, job codes, and then the columns say Quincy base pay, market 25th, percent difference 25th, et cetera, et cetera. Can you just explain to me what I'm looking at? So for example, and you can pull any one on here, but I just want to make sure I understand that chart and what I'm looking at. And some of them say like not applicable, for example, like so that very, very first one, it says there, Quincy base pay 91,536, market 25th, not applicable, straight across the board. And others have percentages in there. So can you just explain to me what I'm looking at so I can understand this correctly?
Yep, yeah, so it's broken out into 3 different sections. One is that all survey data, so that's going to be both the published survey and the custom data combined into one number. So that's a straight 50% weighting on each one of them. We just take the 2 numbers and average them. So it's weighted that way. Then we have the published data section, and then you'll have the custom survey data section as well. So you have the Quincy base pay. At that point, that was the base pay for the people or person in that classification, in that job title. The market 25th is that 25th percentile of the market for that job. If there's an NA there, it means we did not have enough data to summarize for that. Then the percent difference is how much higher or lower is the Quincy pay in comparison to that 25th percentile or that 50th or that 75th. So if we look across and we say, I don't know if the top row right there, we can't do the top row, I guess. Hold on a second, let me get to the all data section. So if we look across on the top row with the assessor, it says it's 17% below. So that's 17% below that 50th percentile of the data that we had collected for that job.
Okay.
within there. And I recommend the focus that we're having on here is on that 25th, on that 50th percentile as well. When we build the pay structure, the goal is that the pay structure from the minimum to the maximum encompass the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles of the market.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other counselors? Mike, thank you for your presentation. I know we'll be speaking with you again, definitely. Thank you, Eric, as well.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda, please.
Number 3, 2023-036, an appropriation for $10 million for state revolving fund loan for sewer and drainage system improvements.
If I could, I can recognize Councilor Phelan. This is finance, possible. $10 million state revolving fund loan for the sewer and drainage system repairs. Good.
Are we putting this in finance, or is this, it has to be advertised? Make a motion to place into finance.
Motion made by Councilor Phelan to put this in finance. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Will be put into Finance Committee. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda, please.
Number 4, 2023-037, a resolve on the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Phelan, who is the main sponsor for this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution I brought in recently, there's a group now with the Friends of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater. And I brought this resolve in because I feel that the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater is part of our history. We had received an update back in December on what was going on with the pageant field, and at no point was this mentioned as part of it. I've since had several talks with the mayor and also with Mr. Murphy, and I think it's important just to go on record to say, I think we've underutilized it. I think it's a precious asset. And like I said, I don't think we should be filling it in. I think we should be actually fixing it and bringing it back to what it should be. There are some problems there that need to be addressed, but I think it's part of our history. I mean, even when it was open, Ruth Gordon was there. She's probably the most famous actor or actress in Quincy's long history, all the way from Academy Awards, Emmy Awards, Golden Globes. She was a great representative from the city of Quincy, living up on Winthrop Ave, and actually in Ward 3. It was Ward 5 at one point, but it was Ward 3. And a great resident. And there are plans that have been put forth. Owen Trainer, who was the lead architect on building the amphitheater, he's since passed on, but his daughter, who's an architect, has put together plans on ways that this could be revamped. So the purpose of this resolution is saying we're opposed to any demolition of the amphitheater. We would also like them to look into these plans and put the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater where it belongs. I mean, I can remember being at several events up there, different cultural events that were going on all the time. We have an event area out here, but it has to be set up for an event area. The Ruth Gordon Amphitheater is already set up. The sound is perfect. Anyone who's ever played there says how great the acoustics are and everything like that. And I think it's something to have it there. And Pageant Field, we're doing all this work on Pageant Field, and it's basically a great part of the city. So I thank all my colleagues who have joined on. I think it's an important thing that we make a statement on this, and we also try to look to see that it is renovated and brought back to the way it should be. So with that, I'll offer a motion and turn it over to the rest of my colleagues if they want to speak.
So motion to move it into, for passage as well as put into oversight? Is it
Yeah,
oversight
passage and
What committee you want?
Parks and Recreation.
Park and Recreation and Oversight, we'll put them in both?
Yeah.
I could. Okay, so I have a motion made by Counselor Phelan to approve and to also put it in oversight and parks. I have a seconded by Counselor Liang. Any discussion on the motion? Just want to thank Counselor Phelan for bringing this forward. I know the folks and the friends of the Ruth Gordon had a little bit of a discussion just recently, and Counselor Phelan has taken the lead on this. Looking forward to the repair and the renovation of this historical situation here, rededication on its 40th anniversary in 2024. So I just want to thank Counselor Phelan for bringing this about. There's a lot of co-sponsors as well, and I'll turn it over to Counselor Devine. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Councilor Phelan, for getting this off the ground. And thank you to all the people that responded so strongly for it. A lot. They had a meeting at the library last week, and they did a really good job. They had a lot of the people that are concerned about it. They had a lot of good, positive thoughts, and a lot of people that want to join in to make sure it keeps going that way. My children, when they did the DARE programs, they would eat their lunch in the theater, and so I know it says not used, but it is used by random things also. And even though it's not exactly what it was intended for, there's a lot of kids that have a lot of good memories of hanging out in the amphitheater all summer long. Thank you very much.
Recognize Counselor Mahoney. Go ahead.
I want to thank Councilor Phelan as well, and I want to thank him for working with all of the people who have organized. And one of the things I want to say as well is the people who have organized, they saved the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater. If it wasn't for them, none of us here on the council, and I think Councilor Phelan would agree with this, would have known that this was even in jeopardy of potentially being filled in. And that's the thing that's the biggest heartache in the city of Quincy, is that unfortunately we don't know what's happening in our own city. We have to find out through back avenues and back room doors to find out these things are happening. And if you didn't find out and it happened to have gotten filled in, it would have been gone. And that's the thing that I feel is so strongly that needs to be mentioned here, because even, and Councilor Phelan mentioned it, we had a presentation from the Commissioner of Natural Resources, and this was not even mentioned, nor was Pageant Field. And another portion that was not mentioned was, we thought we were only going to be losing a few trees down in Marymount, but we lost the whole hill. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the city of Quincy, and I appreciate the work that we do up here, but there's so much that's not being brought to us, and so much that's being done behind closed doors, and so much that is in jeopardy that we don't know about. So I really appreciate the strong stand that Councilor Phelan took on this, and I appreciate the people of the residents of the city of Quincy for recognizing the assets that we do have, because sometimes our leaders don't recognize those assets. And sometimes we have to remind them that this is a city, and we all have a say. So I want to thank everybody who took a stand and is bringing this back to light. And I actually heard that Commissioner Murphy has found some funds that we're going to be able to put into the amphitheater. But what we haven't heard from the administration is that, and all this resolution does do this, we haven't heard that we are not going to touch the amphitheater. And that's the thing that we want to hear. Thank you.
I'm going to recognize Executive to the Mayor, Mr. Walker, to go right ahead, Mr. Walker.
Through you, Mr. President, thank you very much. The mayor has made it clear that we're not filling in the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater. It's that simple. He said it multiple times. I know originally there was going to be a discussion about its use, about safety. We understand that maybe that was a worthwhile discussion based upon the feedback, based upon the reaction. It is done. It's dead. It's not happening. So Commissioner Murphy and the mayor is happy to work with a group, whatever group comes to us, to talk about future use of the amphitheater. I think everyone is going to be very pleased when they see the overall improvements to Pageant. Pageant, as we all know, is a gem in this city, and the improvements that are going on up there right now are going to be absolutely tremendous, and they're going to be done in time for the most part for Flag Day. So we're looking forward to that. I will say, just to add on, that we talk about things being done behind closed doors. I just want to take a little bit of an issue with that, because this was an item that was duly posted, duly discussed in front of a regulatory board, in front of the city, at a public meeting. Now, that's not to say this was a discussion that the Board of Park and Recreation Managers had. It was a discussion. There were things that people thought maybe they could save some money on, and maybe if we move forward on it, we could do this and that. No determination was ever made that we were ever going to go forward with that. It wasn't done. It was not a done deal. That's not how, it is physically, it stretches the mind to suggest that the administration, in any way, shape, or form, would have all of a sudden gone to a place with bulldozers. We couldn't just fill it in, folks, counselors. It wasn't just about filling it in. You would have to take it down stone by stone, piece by piece. It was going to be a major construction project if it ever got there. But it didn't get there. There was a discussion about it, never made the final determination. That's it. He's reiterated it on several times.
Guys, hey, there'll be no discussion from the public. This is not a public discussion. It's not a public discussion, okay? Hold on. Not here at this forum. Will be removed. Just hold on. This is not an open discussion. This will be amongst the councils.
Make it open.
It's not an open discussion in here right now. Councilors, I'm going to open.
Terrible, corrupt politicians.
So-
That's what you all are.
Oh, my
We're going to take a recess. We're going to take a recess. We're going to back into session. Next item on the agenda. Actually, can we have a vote real quick?
Yep. Well,
Okay. Motion made by Counsel Phelan, seconded by Counsel Liang. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the motion.
Yeah, on the motion. Go right ahead, Counsel Kane.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you caring about this. This is an attempt that Councilor Phelan has made to bring this conversation more public. So once this is in a committee, we'll have a hearing about it, and we'll discuss it openly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Yes. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
To Oversight in Park and Rec.
Okay, 9 members in the affirmative. Motion carries. It's going to be put into approved and oversight in parks. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Number 5, 2023-038, a gift for $1,000 from Quincy Police Patrol Officers Association for DARE.
Can one of the councils give me, entertain a motion to approve? Motion to approve made by Counsel Phelan, seconded by Counsel Andronico. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine. Counselor Harris. Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona, excuse
Yes.
me. 9 members.
9 members in the affirmative. Motion carries. I think that completes all our agenda items for tonight. We're going into approval of previous meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2023. Motion to approve made by Counselor Andronico. Do we have a second? Second. Seconded by Counselor McCarthy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the ayes have it on that. April 3rd, 2023 are approved. Communication reports from the mayor, other city officers, city boards. So, Madam Clerk, do we have any utilities and traffics?
Yes, thank you.
Go right ahead.
Utility request to refer to Public Works Committee for scheduling and advertising, grant of location, National Grid, Verizon, MassDOT C Street Road Improvement Projects, C Street poles, pole 55, 57, 58, 59, 76, 77, 70, 74, 85, 86, 92, and 94. We also have traffic requests this evening. Refer to ordinance for advertising. Ward 4, Councilor Devine, add a stop sign on Morton Street at Buckley Street, add stop sign at Morton Street and Common Street, add a stop sign at West Street and Common Street.
Madam Clerk, those will be advertised? Is that correct?
Ordinance and advertise.
Overtime, okay. Ordinance advertised. Any other communication reports from the mayor, other city officers, and city boards? Councilors? Anyone? Unfinished business and preceding meeting. Councilors? Reports of committees. I'd like to recognize Councilor Harris.
President DeBona. Okay, this evening, there was a public hearing held on Council Order 2023-035, Utility Grant Location, National Grid, 389 Granite Avenue. Positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee. Motion to approve.
So I got a motion made by Councilor Harris to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor Andronico. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane. Yes. Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Public hearing was held on Monday, March 20th on Council Order 2023-011, Utility Grant of Location, Comcast 147 C Street. Positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee. Motion for approval.
Motion to approve made by Councilor Harris. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane. Yes. Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative. Motion carries. Any other reports? Councilor Phelan, do you have any coming out of finance at all? Are we good for tonight? Enterprise over there, press?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I'd like to recognize
Reports of
Councilor Phelan.
committees, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little off tonight.
That's okay.
I don't know,
We're still on
a little
reports
off.
of committees.
Earlier this evening, we had a meeting with the finance to come up with a municipal broadband enterprise fund. All it does is set up the fund and set up the structure. Councilor Kane, who has led the charge on this for a number of years, and like he did say, he's got a lot of calls on it, and this is something I've got several calls from constituents looking for the same thing. So the committee gave a unanimous vote, and at this time, I believe I have to bring it up, a general vote, pull it out of
General vote,
committee. So I would like to pull out Order 2023-007, the order creation of a municipal broadband enterprise fund. And I would make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilor Phelan to approve this item, order, and seconded by Councilor Kane. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Yes.
Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor Liang. Counselor Mahoney. Yes. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative. Motion carries. Any other items from any of the councilors? From reports of committees we're still in? Seeing none, we're moving on to presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. I'd like to go to Councilor Phelan. Go right ahead. Next.
It's with a heavy heart I bring this before the city council. Longtime Ward 3 city councilor for 16 years in Ward 3, former council president. My father-in-law, Jack Lydon, has passed away. He was a bit of a force here. When I was first coming on, my very first time on the city council, he was going off. But even then, he was a force to be reckoned with. And but along with that, he always had the biggest smile on his face. He believed in family and community. He also believed in helping other people. Tremendous amount of work he did, not only with his family, but for the Asian community here in Quincy. He was in the forefront in the 80s when it wasn't popular, and he was one of the movers and shakers, even after he was a city councilor, to make sure that everyone played on an even playing field and bringing services and necessary things into both here in the city, into the schools, into a lot of the businesses, and actually not try to push away newcomers, but put his arms around them and welcome him here. And he's going to be somebody really missed. He was a strong family man. He was always the guy you saw at Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever it was. One of his favorite things was whenever we went into a restaurant, he would go, "Okay, whose birthday is it?" Because he thought he could get a free birthday cake. But he was just that kind. He always had Pat Tolan, former council president, first actually woman council president here in Quincy, would always call him the cheerful rogue. And he was that, but he worked for people. He's joined his wife Diane and his son David, who passed before him. And I know for all the work, he had a huge heart. He was always there to help people. So I know he's up in heaven right now, probably sitting on a bench by his favorite place, which was his summer home on Lake Winnipesaukee. Quincy was his first favorite, but definitely Winnipesaukee in the summer. So I like to think that they're sitting there having a little happy hour on their little veranda going out over Winnipesaukee. But he was a wonderful city councilor, dedicated a lot of his life to both people in the funeral business and the city of Quincy. And he's going to be greatly missed by the people of the city of Quincy, particularly business people in Wollaston area. He was a stalwart there for more than 50 years. And that, so I like to just say a word for him. He's one of our own from the council, and just that if you could put him in your thoughts and your prayers, particularly his daughters and his grandkids and great-grandkids and all that. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. My condolences, deepest ones. I'd like to recognize Council McCarthy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sadly, I have a few to talk about here. First, Beatrice Brown, Patty McGowan's mother, who passed in late March. Wonderful lady who grew up in Southie, was born in Portland, Maine. She was your typical, probably in charge of that family in South Boston, your typical mother at that time. She was a retired postal clerk for 25 years to the South Boston Postal Annex. A big sports fan, and Bea was the beloved wife of the late James Brown, the loving mother of Rosemary Brown of South Boston, Jim Brown and his wife Ellen of Watertown, Catherine Ryan, and her husband Neil of Southie in Washington, D.C., and Patty McGowan and her husband Steve of Quincy and Howe's Neck. So one of the things I wanted to point out, one of the comments here in the obituary was, Bea was a kind and generous, sweet woman who will be greatly missed by all those who loved her. The loss is immeasurable, but so is the love left behind. So prayers and thoughts out to the McGowans. At the same time, Patty lost her brother-in-law at the beginning of the month in April. Mark McGowan, only 52, sudden passing. Mark lived down the Neck, and he was the son of Audrey and the late Owen McGowan. Mark graduated from Quincy High and enjoyed an early career as an electronics repair technician. He was very mechanically inclined, and he's survived by Audrey, his sister Sharon, and her husband Jimmy, brothers Paul and Rosemary, Steve and his wife Patricia, Brian, and many cousins, nieces, nephews, and lifelong friends. I grew up across the street from the McGowans on C Ave back in the day, so I knew them very well. And very sad time to lose two people that you're close to so quickly. Also tonight, and a few folks here probably went, Tracy Campbell, Tracy O'Neill of Weymouth, but she's of the O'Neills of Howe's Neck. She died suddenly April 18th, and she was only 59. She was born February 1964 in Milton, was a daughter of the late John and Peggy O'Neill, and she was the owner of Peggy O'Neill's Pub in Dorchester. Tracy and all the O'Neills are very proactive and outward folks. There's a whole slew of brothers and sisters that a lot of people know in the city. Involved in everything. Tracy was very kind, giving, loving, and everyone loved her. She knew how to throw a party. She knew how to get people together. She was the beloved wife of Paul Campbell and many brothers and sisters. And that funeral's tomorrow down at Blessed Sacrament at 10:30. And another one, another Howe's Necker. Priscilla Beth Little, the Little family. She passed April 16th. She was 72. Beth suffered from polio virus and needed to be homeschooled for many years. But she was a wonderful woman. Despite the adversities, she earned her Bachelor's of Science and her Master's of Education from BU. She went on to be a special needs teacher for many years. She was very generous with her time, spent a lot of time volunteering and working with the folks at the Howe's Neck Congregational Church. She never complained, no matter what her troubles were. She had a strong will and a full life. That wake is tomorrow night at Cohane's from 4 to 7. So prayers out to the McGowans, the O'Neills, and the Littles having a tough time. And take a little personal privilege here also. I mentioned to a few folks, keeping your prayers and thoughts. A gentleman named Paul Smith. Gary Smith is his brother. He's a deputy chief on the fire department for many years. Paul's a Braintree firefighter, very good friend of mine who had brain surgery, and he's probably in for the fight of his life. So just keep the Smith family in your prayers and thoughts. It's going to be a long road for him. That came out of nowhere. And I know that the Smiths are a strong family, and Paul will fight it, but please keep him in your prayers and thoughts. Thank you.
Any other councils? I have, unfortunately, condolences and deepest to Linda Wilson, who passed away, surrounded by her family, April 13th, 2023. She was her daughter, most of you will know Tracy Wilson, and her husband, Patrick McDermott, who was a city councilor here, as well as the current Norfolk County Sheriff. Linda, she enjoyed travel in the Caribbean, going to the beach, seeing Broadway shows, and especially loved concerts and cruises with her husband. She's a cancer survivor herself. She spent many years volunteering for Dana-Farber in Boston, where she made many dear friends. Please keep the thoughts and prayers with the Wilson family. She's going to be beloved wife of Charlie Wilson. She lives in Amanda Wilson and her husband, Alex Nicholson. Proud grandmother of Alana Wilson McDermott and Adam Wilson McDermott, and sister of Phyllis Dyer and Beverly Gilmartin. The relatives and families are invited to celebrate her life during the visiting hours on Wednesday, 4 to 8, which is this Wednesday, in McDonald Cohane Funeral Home in South Weymouth. It's the opposite of the South Shore Hospital. Folks don't know where that is. And the funeral service will take place on Thursday, 10:30 a.m. in the funeral home, burial to follow Pine Hill Cemetery. Please keep the Wilson family in your thoughts and prayers, please, if you could. Do we have any other condolences or remonstrance, petitions?
So privilege here.
Before I call on Councilor Phelan, I just want to just elaborate to the councilors here that any type of agenda items that we have that we bring forward is that the councilors have an obligation to stick to the particular resolution, the particular order, and not go off and not do what's on the agenda. We've had this discussion before, but we need to keep to what's on the agenda. So it's just a privilege to the rest of the councilors that moving forward, we need to keep collectively to what is on the agenda and not get off the agenda onto other items. With that, I'd like to open it back up to Councilor Phelan. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is more not a, well, I guess it would be a remonstrance, but I've made a personal decision that I will not be seeking a third term as Ward 5 City Councilor. So I'm making the announcement now what papers are going to be due. You know, people who are going to run have to file papers back in, I believe they come out on May 2nd.
May 2nd.
So this was a decision I came with my family, that this would be, I was also reminded by my wife that goes back to the early 80s when I've either been in a volunteer position, an elected position, or an appointed position for more than 40 years with the city. So we have decided that, and I've decided that I'm going to begin to kind of do some things that I've always wanted to do, but you kind of get wrapped up in a lot of things, and it's very hard. I don't want to go away and not be here to represent the people in my area. That's the one thing I've tried to do for the 4 years that I've been a city councilor. I want to, and we're going to be doing some things, you know, that we're going to be away. I'm going to be away, and it's going to be taken both on a professional and personal level. So I just want to let everyone know that I'm going to be not seeking a third term on the city council. That will end a 14-year career if you put both together. So I've decided that I will not be seeking, and I want to just say that it's been a great honor and privilege, and I'll talk more about it when December comes around, because I'll stay till the end and fulfill my term that I put my hand up and said I would. So I'm going to stay and finish out the year. But after that, I will be, you know, I will not be returning. But it's been a great honor and privilege to serve with all the men and women who go to the city council. I think of some of the old councils I served with and the new ones. And the one thing I have always seen is the tremendous care, and that everyone here has the best interests of the city at heart. And it's been an honor and privilege to serve with all you. And I'll talk more about it as time goes on, but I just wanted to get it out that I will not be seeking a third term on the Quincy City Council. So, Mr. President, I thank you for allowing me the point of personal privilege. Thank you, Mr. President.
As a personal privilege, I'd just like to add a little bit on Councilor Phelan. You've been a fantastic colleague. And I spoke a little bit to Madam Clerk about this in the last year. As our city council has really changed, there's been a lot of folks that have left the council since I've started back in 2016. And when Chuck Phelan came back 4 years ago, he brought a lot of knowledge and wisdom from the 90s and his time as the IT director here in the city of Quincy of 40 years. He talked about a lot of things that they had done previously in the 90s and what had come to fruition here that's in the council chambers here in 2023. You've been a great colleague. You've been fair to the constituents. And you're going to be dearly missed, because you bring that knowledge and background and fairness to the council and the wisdom. I remember when Joe Finn had left the council back my first 2 years, his last 2 years, and I saw that wealth and book of knowledge that you brought on when he left. So it's going to be big shoes to fill in Ward 5, I can tell you that much, because Chuck Phelan represented the people, as you saw tonight with the resolution on the Ruth Gordon, and a lot of his votes as the 4 years he's been on the council has been very, very, very fair. We're gonna miss that type of knowledge and book of wealth that comes up to the city council and represents the people, as well as being a great colleague for all of us. So with that, Chuck, I wish you the best in the next couple months. I wish you the best for your family. I know a lot has happened in the last few years, and I always wish you the best. Thank you so much, Chuck, as being a great colleague, great, fellow counselor, I guess I could say. Any other petitions, memorials, and remonstrances from any other counselors? Moving on to motions, orders, and resolutions. Scheduling of committee meetings and public hearings. So we're going on another week from today. We're going on Monday, May 1st. We'll be back on at 6:30. I know that the budget will be coming soon for finance committees. Please speak with myself or speak with Finance Chair Phelan about if there's any days in there that don't match up. I know I have a few days in there that I can't match up to. We'd had this discussion last year about finance and how to, pick and point what days we've used. Since being on the Council for Finance, we've done a lot of different things. We've done Saturdays, we've done Monday nights, we've done Wednesday nights, we've done 2 full days. So really speak with Counselor, Chairperson of the Finance Committee as we move forward into scheduling that, for the month of May. We also have Monday, May 15th is our 2 May meetings, and then we have Monday, June 12th and Monday, June 20th. So those are our 2 main meetings in May and 2 main meetings in June. And then obviously you'll have the summer break. But any other committee meetings and public hearings, any other counselors? Remember, if you want to get this in, get it in now. Your little book, if you have any that you want to take out of here, and do. All right? That completes our agenda items, and tonight, do I have a motion to adjourn from anyone? Motion to adjourn made by Councilor Phelan, seconded by Councilor Andronico. This meeting is now adjourned. It is now 8:48 PM.